Hi, my name is Felix Schmidt. I am lecturer here in the EPFL in sanitary engineering, but most of my professional activities are in my company, CSD Engineers. Today we will speak about waste collection and transport. I would like you to remember two important points. Firstly, collection and transport are usually the major part of waste management costs, much more than landfill costs. Second point I want you to remember is that the cost of collection and transport is varying a lot from one city to another, according to local characteristics, urban situation, and to the level of services. Frequencies, collection routes, equipments, bags or containers and trucks have a big influence on the cost. What is the main problem of waste management? Money. We have not enough money to do the waste management as well as we think to do it. Thus, we have two solutions. Either we bring the cost down, or we adapt revenues and taxes to reach a sufficient level. Generally, we have to do both. Today, we will see how to bring the cost down and improve the service to the population. What are, in waste collection, the most expensive elements? First, there are trucks. The trucks are very expensive, and also the workers. The workers is also a big part of the cost. Thus, if we want to reduce the cost, we have to develop solutions in order to use better these important elements. We have to work on time reduction in order to load as much waste as possible in a reduced time. For that, we have to work on the organization and on the equipments. We need to choose good trucks in order to minimize as much as possible the time needed to load, to transport, and then to unload the waste. For that, we have to choose trucks allowing to load the waste in the shorter time as possible. Important point is to have a compaction system, which allows to take more waste. But second point, very important, is to consider the height of loading the waste. Here we have some 1 meter height. Here in this example in Sao Tome, we have 2 meters height. It's much more work, much more time. Here in Peru, we are using trucks with 4 meters high. This needs much more work, much more time, and a lot of people for doing the same job. If we consider the cost of operation of such choice, here in Peru we have some estimation of some 60 soles per ton. With this kind of trucks, we are on about 350 soles per ton. This is 5 times more. And if we consider this kind of open trucks, we are at about 650 soles per ton, because it needs a lot of time to load and to unload such trucks. And if we consider these little vehicles here, which could be very useful to go in narrow streets, the cost is 1,900 soles per ton. It is much, much higher than our 60 soles per ton. So the choice of good trucks is very important in order to reduce the cost of the collection and transport. The volume of the trucks is also a very important point of efficiency. If we consider such trucks, we have approximately 0.8 ton per cubic meters, because we have a compaction system. We have more or less 7 cubic meters, which make more or less 5.6 ton. In such an open trucks, we have only 0.3 ton per cubic meters. Also about 8 cubic meters, we have only 2.4 ton. This is just half. In this bed system, we have also 0.3 ton per cubic meters and 1 cubic meters, which mean only 0.3 or 0.5 ton. So the transportation between these different type of trucks is very different, and we have to choose also a good volume for efficient transportation. This has influence on time and on fuel consumption. Other element, very simple, is to choose trucks having an unloading time as short as possible. In this kind of trucks, we see that we can unload it in more or less 2 minutes with one driver. If you have to do it manually, like in this situation, we need 3 or 4 hours with 3 or 4 workers. These are not good solution. For reducing the time the trucks are stopped for loading the waste, we also need to choose a good container strategy. Bulk waste in the ground is the worst case. Here, in Albania or in Sao Tome, we see how many times it's necessary to load the waste to the truck. The utilization of plastic bags allows a faster loading time. The best is the utilization of containers and, if possible, standardized containers. Ideal solution for reducing the loading time is to provide containers with large or very large capacity. A truck takes more or less the same times to load 100 liters or 3 cubic meters. There are some other conditions to reduce the loading time. First is that the containers must be accessible for the trucks and not blocked, like here in Albania, by the cars. For having the containers in good conditions, it needs to organize maintenance and repairing the containers. This means to respond to some questions: who is the owner of the container, who is responsible, who is in charge of the maintenance, who will react if there are not enough containers or if the containers are not in good condition. A good routing design is another important point for an efficient collection of the waste. In this example, we see the doors-to-door collection of every container. The collection time and distances are quite high. It could be also possible to reduce the number of loading points and to reduce the distance of the work. It will take less time, less efforts for the same number of containers. It will require that population has to go 100 or 200 meters to the containers, but this happens in a lot of cities. Finally, transport are an important point of the cost, as we see at the beginning. Transport costs are depending on local conditions, quantities and distances and material. If you use a big truck or small one, the time and fuel consumption are more or less the same, so it's very important to use trucks as big as possible. To reduce the cost, it is also important that the trucks are, on average, near 100% full. If they are not full enough, the cost per ton will increase rapidly. But in general, collection trucks are not optimal for transport. If the distance to the landfill is more than some 20 kilometers, and if the volume is big enough, it is interesting to study the possibility of implementation of transfer station. In this case, transport is done by big trucks having a capacity of 3 to 5 collection trucks. Collection trucks and teams keep working in the city, and transport trucks ensure the transport to the landfill. Such transportation can contribute significantly to the efficiency and to the cost reduction of the transport. The sustainability of the waste management service is strongly depending from the cost. The experience shows that there are usually a big potential of cost reduction in collection and transport. Working for cost reduction means to choose good trucks and good bins in order to reduce the times, but also to choose a reduced number of collection points, to make a good routing, and to create a good organization and maintenance system of trucks and bins. Next time, we will see more in detail how to proceed on an analysis of the present situation in order to reduce this cost.